Oh, wait. Okay.
Seems like it, yeah.
For some reason, it didn't start the stream on YouTube. It did pick up the signal. Now we're live. Okay, so my
Okay.
apologies for that. No clue why it
Yeah,
happened
yeah,
because I had
yeah.
auto start enabled and it didn't auto start. So YouTube is messing up. But at least now we're live. So welcome everyone. Um,
Thank you.
how have you guys been since last time? Have you had any responses to the conversation, which is something that I'm curious about.
Ahmed, go ahead. I'm after you.
You're on mute, Ahmed.
I had some nice comments, mainly centered around the conversation being amicable. And of course, those kinds of conversations, you will have a high degree of polarization. So people who are already, on your side will praise you, and people who are not on your side will say, no, we don't believe in it, just believe God exists first or something. So the nice thing is that we explain the points of view, and maybe few guys will change their minds.
Okay. And you,
Yeah.
Sohel?
On my side, I heard several people telling me it was a very nice, respectable dialogue, and like it was like very friendly. And I told them, well, I treat my debater as a friend, so I don't mind. Like he has his own faith, but I don't know. Maybe he changes someday and become like me. But
I
the
don't.
goal is the goal is not to change Ahmed. Actually, the goal is to, because even Islam as a faith, it changes like any idea. It evolves.
This is where I agree, and this is why we have these conversations because I think we can all start with the idea that we're not going to convince our interlocutor during a conversation, but
Yeah.
there might be people who pick up things from this conversation, and this is why we have it. And the fact that we can have an amicable conversation and can, as Ahmed just said, that people see that, I think that is the most important part. Because even though we think different, it doesn't mean that we have to be enemies or that we have to be disrespectful to each other. So I'm really happy that worked well last time. So what we're going to do, Sohel, you're going to open it. So I'll hand over the floor to you guys. You can start off.
Okay. I will start by, okay, I want to share some text. It's not I didn't make any like slides, or I just put some text there so people can see. I don't know if it's sharing. Okay, let me try to share it again. I'm new to this, so share audio. I should share audio also, yeah. Okay, are you able to see it? Yeah, okay. So I chose two verses from the Quran, and also I will show you a hadith, um, like a saying attributed to Prophet Muhammad. Okay, it's the first verse. It says, وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تُؤْمِنْ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, which says it is not for any soul to believe except by Allah's leave, and He will bring His wrath upon those who are unmindful. Also, another translator says, and it is not for a soul, i.e., anyone, to believe except by permission of Allah, and He will place defilement upon those who will not use reason. Okay. The next one is وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. But you cannot will to do so except by the will of Allah, the Lord of all worlds. So this is a second verse, obviously gives humans no option whatsoever. Also, there is a long hadith by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and it is in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, but I will go to the English version of it. It says, on the authority of Abu Abdurrahman Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who said, the Messenger of Allah, and he is the truthful, the believed, narrated to us, indeed, the creation of one of you is brought together in his mother's belly for 40 days in the form of a zygote, then he is a clinging clot for a like period, then a morsel of flesh for a like period, then there is sent to him the angel who blows the human soul into him, and is commanded about 4 matters: to write down his provision, his lifespan, his actions, and whether he will be unhappy or happy. And by Allah, other than whom there is no deity, indeed, one of you does the deeds of the people of paradise until there is not between him and it except an arm's length, but the decree overtakes him, so he does the deeds of the people of fire and enters it. So as you see, like somebody will do all his life good deeds, but at the last moment he will do the deed of the people of hell. And also he continues, and indeed one of you does the deeds of the people of fire until there is not between him and it except an arm's length, but the decree overtakes him. The same notion that at the last moment he will go to heaven, even though he was doing evil or bad things all his life. And the hadith is in these books, Sahih Muslim, and this number of the hadith, and Al-Bukhari, and also Al-Albani, which is a modern hadith scholar. Anyway, that was the text I wanted to use to show the audience that Islam does not believe in freedom, that we as humans are destined either to be happy or unhappy, either even going to hell or heaven. Is a matter decided by God, not by us as individuals. And in real life, such belief is kind of problematic because it contradicts with logic and reality. For example, I want to use this example from reality. Imagine 2 boats, one coming in the same river. One is full of women who are been Muslim all their lives. They never been in any other religion. They followed the religion strictly. And there is another boat that is full of Western ladies or women, the same, and both of them sunk in the river. You will see the Western women swim to the shore and survive the ordeal, whereas the women ladies, they were mostly be drowned because they cannot swim in their culture. So we see reality works because you will get what you do. I mean, if you train yourself on swimming, for example, it is more probable that you will survive the ordeal. Whereas somebody who has no training whatsoever, they will sunk and be drowned. So reality and logic works. There is no divine intervention in these issues or in life. Let's say, for example, an accident takes place. A car accident in a Western country will be dealt with scientifically. So they will go and study the road, they will study the car, how they made it. Was the driver drunk? Was he a bad driver, a reckless person? But in the Middle East, for example, in Islamic countries, and I used to hear that, any accident they would say, oh, it's God's will. They just died because God shortened their life, and yeah, they're gone. So that's a big problem, and that's why I see Islamic countries, they suffer really because of this culture. They don't have any thinking of human freedom or reality or gravity, science. Yeah, almost nothing of that. That's why I will make it short. And finally, yeah, that's why I see Islamic countries, they all suffer from backwardness. Like even country as secular as Tunisia is still backward because the major belief system is Islamic. Yeah, that's my general point. Thank you.
Okay. Tossing it over to
All right.
Ahmed.
Okay, so you've given me plenty to respond to, which I intend to. So that took like 15 minutes, I guess, or 12 minutes maybe?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
Yeah. All right, so let's, I'll split my response into two pieces. The first piece, what is actually what I would claim to be the position of Islam on the matter of predestination versus free will. And the second thing would be responding to your specific comments on that. So the position of Islam on the matter of free will, in my opinion, is a very clear one. Through the history of Islam, there has been, because this is actually an ancient philosophical question, even in philosophy and even in atheism. So you will find people today who are atheists or materialists discussing the question of determinism versus free will. So I think this is not a question of only people who are religious or people who are not. It is a philosophical question, and in my opinion, people who are atheistic in their worldview or materialistic or naturalistic, the majority of them that I have encountered in my own experience, at least, do not believe in free will, which was really surprising to me. They would say that the universe is is governed by laws of physics, and laws of physics are more or less deterministic, and hence there is humans are essentially machines, and we are doing what we are doing because we could not have done anything else. And the last prolonged thing I have watched on that was a debate actually between Dan Dennett and Keith Ward. Obviously, Dan Dennett for the atheistic deterministic point of view, who is arguing it is just a brain, which is a machine, and Keith Ward, who is a Christian and a philosopher and a priest. That I had even an interview with him on my channel. is saying, no, there is a supernatural part of the human, which is the soul, which gives us this extra element of free will. It's not just the material world in play there. So in principle, I think that if somebody really adopts and endorses the materialistic or naturalistic worldview to its end, then in my experience, the vast majority would take a deterministic worldview that negates free will. Things are happening this way because there couldn't have been any other solution, because human beings are just like any other machine, except they are biological machines. So in my opinion, people who are more poised to believe in free will are the religious people, now regardless of the religion. And then, since they are religious people, they will go back to their own scripture to see if their scripture that they believe in will support this worldview or not, that they are actually correct in this idea. So let me first go through some ayat from the Quran that relate to what is the position of the Quran on this matter. And I would like, before going into that, to note that the Quran is a whole. It's one whole. So you cannot take a small piece of it and take a resolution, because this is against how people approach interpreting questions, especially important questions that are referenced in many places in the Quran in different contexts. You need to take the whole thing, otherwise you will reach an incorrect resolution. So first, for example, in Surah Al-Kahf, or the cave, ayah 29, it says, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. And what that, the translation of meaning, whatever I say is a translation of meaning, because cannot translate the Quran literally. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ means, so who wishes to believe and who wishes to disbelieve. So who wishes to believe would believe, and who wishes to not believe would not believe. The other one is Surah Al-Insan, or man, and it says, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. It's talking about the human being, and it says, we have surely guided him to the way, either thankful or a denier or disbeliever, kafir, kafur, extremely disbelieving. Okay, and the third one would be Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow, ayah number 148, and it says, وَلِكُلٍّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. It's talking about people of different religions, for example, Muslims and non-Muslims, but of other religions that come from Allah, like Christians or Jews. It says, وَلِكُلٍّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. And to each there is a direction that he would take. So race for good deeds. So obviously you take your direction, and then you need to do your best in it. And then an interesting one, which is in Surah Al-An'am, or cattle, ayah 149, it says, سَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. It's very interesting to this conversation. سَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا أَشْرَكْنَا وَلَا آبَاؤُنَا وَلَا حَرَّمْنَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ كَذَلِكَ كَذَّبَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ حَتَّى ذَاقُوا بَأْسَنَا قُلْ هَلْ عِنْدَكُمْ مِنْ عِلْمٍ فَتَخْرِجُوهُ لَنَا إِنْ تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْ أَنْتُمْ إِلَّا تَخْرُصُونَ. And it's a long one, so I'm going to chop it off. So it says, سَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا, the ones who take partners with God, and this of course includes people who completely disbelieve. لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا أَشْرَكْنَا وَلَا آبَاؤُنَا. If God has willed it, we wouldn't have become blasphemous, or wouldn't have taken partners with him, and neither would have our fathers or our ancestors. وَلَا حَرَّمْنَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ. And we wouldn't have forbidden anything. كذلك, the comment, God's comment on that would be كذلك كذب الذين من قبلهم, and like so, the ones who came before them كذب, considered religion not true. حتى ذاقوا بأسنا, until our punishment, until they tasted our punishment. And then he says قل هل عندكم من علم فتخرجوه لنا إن تتبعون إلا الظن. Do you have knowledge so you would show us? You are but following your own doubts. وإن أنتم إلا تخرصون, and you are not but saying wrong things. So this is a very clear statement that this argument will be made by people who have chosen to disbelieve, to throw the burden of their disbelief on God, saying that, okay, we have no free will, we are not believing because he willed that we would not disbelieve. We couldn't have done anything else. And God is obviously commenting very strongly on that, saying that this is blasphemous, or this is takdeeb with the religion. This is saying about the religion something that the religion does not say. And so on and so forth. Actually, there are so many ayat in the Quran that are unequivocally indicating free will for the human being, apart from the very logical thing that God is saying that I'm holding you accountable for what you have chosen. So it couldn't be anywhere else. And then there are some ayat that might have different implications, and one has to look at those ayat or those ahadith under the umbrella of this general direction that is coming from those very, very clear assertions of ayat like the ones that I've mentioned. So just to be consistent with what you have put forward in your opening, so you mentioned, for example, ayah number 145 from Surah Ali Imran and ayah number 29 of Surah Al-Insan. I'm starting, let's start, for example, with ayah number 29. And actually it's ayah number, you said it's 29, I think it's actually number 30. So the ayah says, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا, and you would not will unless God wills it. But it is very interesting when you look at the Quran. It is as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects how people will use those ayat out of their context. So if you just go one ayah before that ayah, you will see that you cannot understand this ayah in terms of negating free will, because the ayah just before it, which sets its context, says this, says, إِنَّ هَذِهِ تَذْكِرَةٌ, surely this is remembrance. فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَى رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. So he will, who he wills it, should take away to his Rabb, to his Lord. So the ayah just before it is setting that it is per your will to choose to take the way of Allah, to choose to take the way of God. And then it comments, so you do not get the illusion that you are the primary controller of the world, which goes back to the world view, because everything in the world ticks if Allah allows it to tick. So there is this umbrella that it is God's will that moves anything or makes anything tick or change. It is part of his will to give us free will, but our free will is under his free will. So if somebody wants to find a way to Allah, Allah will still continue testing him. And if he succeeds, he needs to say, Alhamdulillah, thank God that I have succeeded, because he has helped me. So it is a core part of our belief that if we want to do something, we say, Inshallah, if God wills it. So we always seek help from Allah. And if we fail, we say, okay, Alhamdulillah, and we try again. You have also mentioned another ayah, which is ayah number 145 of Surah Ali Imran, which is وَمَا كَانَ. If I misquote you, please tell me. وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ, right? وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ
Yes.
أَن تُؤْمِنَ. Okay, so this ayah is again, it says this: وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تُؤْمِنَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ كِتَابًا مُؤَجَّلًا. And no soul or no nafs, is like self, would sorry وما كان لنفس أن تموت إلا بإذن الله وما كان لنفس أن تموت, and no soul would die unless with the permission of Allah. It is a set book. But if you continue the ayah, this is again very nice, because you said this ayat, I don't know if you are going to say them or not. If you just continue the same ayah, it says this, it continues saying this: وَمَن يُرِدْ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا نُؤْتِيهِ مِنْهَا. And who he wants the benefit of the dunya, of this earthly world, or the return of this earthly world, we will give him from it. وَمَن يُرِدْ ثَوَابَ الْآخِرَةِ نُؤْتِيهِ مِنْهَا. And who he wants the reward of the hereafter, we will give him from it. وَسَنَجْزِي الشَّاكِرِينَ. And we will reward those who thank us. And we will reward the thankful. So in the same ayah where he is saying, you will die at the time that I have set for your death, he is saying, but I have given you the choice within the life that I have given you to choose whether you want to choose this life or the hereafter, and it's according to your choice that I will give you. You then went to a hadith from Muslim, and you specifically referred to the part about the angel writing fates, and part of what he writes is وَشَقِيٌّ أَمْ سَعِيدٌ, whether happy or not happy. And then the finale of the hadith about somebody who has been doing deeds that look like the deeds of people who will go to paradise, and then the book or the decree will apply, and he will change what he is doing, etc. And of course, again, some people might use this as in the same way like the Quran, the ayat. If you take a piece of an ayah, etc. But the Quran even explains this very well. So if you go to the response, and it is an important principle in Islamic exegesis, that if you have something that you are not sure what its meaning is, that you refer to the Quran or you refer to the collective of the evidence. So if you go to Surah Al-Ankabut, for example, you will find, I think it was ayah number 10. Let me just check. Yeah, it says this: أم حسب الذين يعملون السيئات أن يسبقونا ساء ما يحكمون. He uses the same word, فسبق عليه الكتاب, in the hadith that you mentioned, and أن يسبقونا here. And it's if you look at the start of it's ayah number 4, and if you look at the start of the surah, it says أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. Do people think that they will be left just to say, like in the words, we have believed and they are not tested? وَلَقَدْ فَتَنَّا الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ فَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلَا يَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ. And we have tested those who have came before them, so that Allah will know those who have been truthful and those who have been lying. And then he says this: أَمْ حَسِبَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ السَّيِّئَاتِ أَن يَسْبِقُونَ سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Or do those who do bad deeds think that they will be faster than us? This is an unwise thing of them. And it means that there are some people who say, okay, just before I die, I will change what I will do, because it only matters what I did at the end. He says, no, you will not do, you will not be smarter than me. And some people pretend in front of people. They do charity, they do corporate social responsibility actions, their companies are good corporate citizens, they give the poor, but inside their hearts they are not good. And this is what the hadith means. You do the actions of people who are going to paradise, but there is something not right in your heart, and then before you die, just like the ayah in Surah Al-Insan was talking about, and the other ayah in Surah Al Imran,
Ahmed, can you
God
wrap it up?
will uncover yeah, God will just uncover what is in your heart, because this life is a test, and the bottom line is nobody will trick God. If you choose a way, He will help you, and if you choose the other way, He will also help you, because this life is about you choosing and then answering to your consequences. So that's all. I give you the second round now. It was a bit difficult because I had to say my part and then also respond to yours. So it was like double jeopardy here.
Okay, that's good.
Wait, we'll throw it into the open discussion. I did have a question from the side chat.
Okay.
Will you take questions from the chat during the conversation? Do you want me to bring them up, or do you want to wait until the end?
Well, I think during those junctions, it might be good to break the ice or something. I don't know. Maybe Sohel would think differently. If you agree,
I just want to respond to his response. So, like in short,
yeah,
maybe 5 minutes or 3, if that's okay.
Yeah, but
I'm
so
fine.
if people from the chat have questions, do you want me to bring those up during the conversation?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. I'll throw it over to you, Sohel.
Thank you. So what's the next, Peter? You're the moderate and Mubarak.
Yeah, we can go to the open conversation if you like.
Yeah.
If you want to start it, Sohel, you could go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add that Ahmed just proved me right. I mean, the facts he told us about the person who was doing good all his life, but then at the last moment he did something wrong, and then voila, the angel came and took his life away. I mean, reality does not work like that. It's not about you doing something good and bad. Life is full of accidents, like any matter. Like, this is a materialistic world. Let me give you another example. In a car, there is a car, somebody's driving, and in this crash, somebody is burning to death. Okay. Some religious people say, okay, this is either a punishment from God, or is it a testing? Like, okay, he died like a terrible death. He died in fires and slowly. Okay, is that a punishment? It's either a punishment or a purification because of his bad deeds. Okay, how about if this person is a baby? Okay, he has not done anything yet. He's just a new person in this world, yet he dies in an accident, a terrible death. So the whole belief about God testing us and giving us a freedom in this life, it just doesn't make sense. We are free in some issues. There is no full freedom, and there is no full determinism. I don't believe in either of them, because let's say, for example, if I am having a meal and I have 3 choices in my meal. I have a chicken, and I have sweets, and I have salad. So whatever I choose will affect my life somehow, either positive or negative. It's up to me. I have the same amount, three similar amounts of food, but it's up to me to choose which one I'm going to eat. For example, even though I love sweets, let's say, but I chose to eat salad instead of the food I love. So that has an effect. It's nothing to do with God or a divine being. Yeah, it's just reality as it works.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Go ahead, yeah. If Peter is okay with it, and Mubarak.
Yeah, sure. You
Well,
you can go into open conversation. So
yeah, it's a open conversation. It just
Okay,
keep it
that's good.
amongst you. Yep.
Good,
All
Ahmed.
right. So actually, I responded to the parts about whether we have free will or not, or God makes us do things according to Islam. So the ayat that I have shown and the looking at the ayat in their full context and on the other clear ayat, I think this question is very clear in the Quran and the Sunnah even. But now there is this other part that you have talked about, which is, do we have complete freedom versus complete determinism? Now, complete freedom is different than free will. We have free will within the choices that we are presented with. So somebody is born American, somebody is born Chinese, somebody is born, I don't know, Egyptian, somebody is born Lebanese. This is not something up to our knowledge that we choose. We are presented with that kind of test. We come to the world with this nationality, with those parents, with this kind of body, with those illnesses, whatever. You are born in a country that then suffers a disaster. There are so many things that are outside of our control. So let's say there are many things that are outside our control. But then there is our response. We are here to be tested. What will be our response to those tests? So this person who is doing good deeds, but he has a bad heart, before he dies, God promises to put him under a test that will force him to make a real choice. And if somebody has an accident, it is a test. If somebody does not have an accident, it is also a test. If somebody is poor, it is a test. How are you going to respond to that? Are you going to be patient? Are you going to be not patient? If somebody is rich, he is tested how he is going to respond to that. Are you going to be giving to the poor and charitable and thankful or not? So everything in life is a test in terms of testing your response given the choices that you have. And there is this concept, or there is backdrop, that you are always accountable for taking the right choice out of the choices that you have. So if you have no choice whatsoever, you cannot be accountable. If somebody forces you to do something, God does not punish you for it. If you did not receive a message, if you have never received a message from Allah, He does not hold you accountable for not being a believer. وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. This is what He said, and we will not punish, or we will not torture unless we have sent a messenger. This is very clear. So if you did not have the option to believe or disbelieve, He does not take you accountable for not being a believer.
Okay, but Ahmed, I mean, according to the tradition, I mean,
Yeah.
since God knows everything in ahead of time, like before He even create anything, He knows the future. Okay, for example, there is a contradiction here, because if we believe that God knows everything and He controls everything, and He already, for example, gave me this amount of life, breath, health, I can continue how these many years in my life, but nothing more. Okay, so why you pray, for example? Okay, because you have to. You told me to take Islam as a whole. Okay, not just take one part. You need to take a whole. For example, if I take Quran, I should take it as a whole. Okay, but remember, Quran itself says, okay, try if you can bring one surah like this, like Quran challenge the infidels to bring even one surah. Okay, if If one surah is not able to answer my question, why should I trust the whole Quran? I mean, sometimes one verse in the Quran is enough for me to be a problem, because it is a problem. Because if God already knows everything, He already decided everything, He already knows if I will go to hell or heaven, why I'm doing prayers and why I go mosque. I mean, these infidels, they were right when they told Muhammad, why we should believe if your God already decided who will go to hell. And you know, for example, in the Islamic tradition about this guy who was fighting faithfully with Muhammad, but Muhammad yet told his companions, this guy will go to hell. And at the last moment, he committed suicide before he dies. And then the companions realized that, okay, that's why Muhammad said he will go to hell, because he couldn't take the pain and he killed himself. So how can you pray if God knows everything? He already, you either don't trust God, for example, if you don't trust His plan, and that's why you are praying, or God can change. That's why you praying. So what's your answer to that, my friend?
Okay, so you said a few things that are quite interesting. They're different things, so I have to address them differently. They are big questions. The first one is related to omniscience versus predestination. So I will give you a parable, but you might consider it's a very good parable, or it is just a good parable. Of course, the third option is not is that you don't like it, but I hope that you take one of those.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
So let's say this: you stand in front of the mirror and you find you're handsome. Okay. Is this because the mirror is good or because you're handsome? It is essentially because you're handsome, and it is an attribute of the mirror that it reflects reality. Okay. Now let's say you have a mirror that sees you 20 years from now in the future. Let's just assume this mirror exists, which will be just great. Okay. And in the mirror, you see that you are handsome and extremely rich. All right. You are the richest, the most wealthy person on earth. Obviously, you will not consider that this is the case because this is a very good mirror. The mirror is good to you. The mirror is just reflecting you in 20 years, regardless how magically does it know that. Does it reflect that? So if you would like to look at God's omniscience, I have another parable, but maybe this one would be enough. It is like God's knowledge is like a mirror. It just sees to all directions because He is not limited by time. So there is really no causal relation between God's omniscience and predestination. It is part of His qadar. It is part of what He ordained is to give you free will, and it is an attribute of His that regardless if it is directly His action or if it is the action that He has delegated you to take, which is at least at the very minimum your choice. At least your choice. Even regardless if this choice translates into action or not. Okay? So you hate somebody and this is a sin, or you envy somebody and this is a sin. You don't need to do anything. It is just a sin because you're envying. Because envying is a sin. So He's given you this ability to choose what to think and what to feel and what to do. But His omniscience continues working regardless if He is acting or not. And this is the reason It depends on which ayah you're reading. What is the context of this ayah? When he says, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهِ, he's saying this. Because you cannot actuate something in the real world unless Allah has given you the power to do so. You cannot even have the power on your own to have free will unless God gives you free will. And we can see this in the line of thought of people who are naturalists and materialists that are to the extreme that you do not like. You do not like full determinism. You have just said it. But you listen to somebody like Dan Dennett, and he will tell you, no, we are machines. We have the illusion of free will. We don't have real free will.
Yes.
And God is as if he is saying, yes, if I did not ordain it, you will be like the sun and the moon and the rocks and the trees and I don't know, the water that is flowing from higher levels to lower levels. You have free will because I have given you free will. So anything that you will is because I have given you free will. But it's part of this free will that you take your own choice. So this is number one, which is the omniscience part. And also the second one about
Ahmed, can I jump in real quick? This might be a good time for a question from the chat. Iron Charioteer asked Ahmed, so is Islam like a matrix controlled by Allah?
Nice question.
Yeah. Okay. So nice one. So I have a little video on my channel. It's called Truth 4, if somebody is interested. And I'm giving this exact parable actually. And when I was talking now to Sohel, I was saying I can give another parable, and it would have been this one. So let's assume this. Let's assume that we are those little AI creatures in a big simulation that somebody sitting in his living room is running. Okay? But we are very advanced AI that we have free will. I don't think this is possible, given that I'm a computer engineer, but let's say that it's possible, that we can really reach AI that has free will. I don't know how, but let's say. And I am just the guy in the living room. I'm not God. I'm just the guy in the living room who's running this simulation. But I can fast forward the simulation. So I can know what the AI guys will do in the future. And this is something that is running on a machine. So if I rewind it back, probably they will take the same choices. But now, since I have run it forward and I know what has happened, this is not forcing them to do it. I just cheated. I'm just cheating the system. Now, God does not need to run it forward. He knows this because this is an attribute of his. He knows everything. Now, does this mean that the world is like a matrix? Well, you can say that the matrix is like the world, actually. Everything in the world is happening because God permitted it to happen. So people, for example, who would look at quantum mechanics and say that there is no specific reason that a specific wave function collapses in a specific way, or a specific event happens left or right, or a specific radioactive material decays at that specific point, that specific nucleus, or that specific particle. A person who believes, like me, would say every single atom, every single electron, if there are two choices and one specific choice has been taken, it is because God ordained that this specific choice is taken. And the butterfly effect of that means that God is in control of the fundamentals of the universe, each single instant at each single Planck length or Planck volume in this universe. But this includes that he has given these specific creatures living in this world, which are the human beings, the opportunity to make up their minds in what are their choices, given the tests that they are presented with. He's controlling at the very quantum level if this specific gene will be expressed, because this specific chemical reaction will happen at that specific microsecond, causing somebody to catch a disease or a cancer. And then he is waiting for your response. Either you say Alhamdulillah and you are patient, or you say I hate God because why me? And you have lost the test.
But Ahmed, according to Islam itself, your reaction itself, it's been decided, because if God already gave you cancer instead of not you, okay, that person, if God gives a specific person, let's say Mr. J, or let's assume a name, like anyone, a person. That person has the right to ask, why me? Okay. For example, me myself, when I was a kid, I discovered I had a disease, something I got inherently through my genes. It's called muscular dystrophy, weak muscles. And that always was a question for me, like, why me? Why not another person? And you know what some Muslims told me? They told me, well, God made you a disabled person because you might have become a criminal, okay? An assumption, you would become a killer, a rapist, or whatever. You know, they said something like that. And I said, well, why he didn't do that with Saddam Hussein or Adolf Hitler? Or like, there are many tyrants in the world. God could have given them, like made them like disabled people, and we will be done a better world. So the question why me is genuine. I mean, and even if you read the Quran talks about unbelievers as if they have the same amount of freedom that God, the creator himself has, which is, I think, ironic. It's not a joke, but it's ironic how a small creature could have the same amount like God, the creator. What do you think about this point?
Well, we don't have the same amount of freedom like God, because he chooses the test, right? So obviously,
Yeah, okay.
obviously he chooses to create us, and he chooses the test.